There are moments in life when you think you understand love completely, when you believe trust is unbreakable and the bond you share with someone is immune to time, distance, and the quiet changes of the human heart. But sometimes it only takes a few unexpected moments, small, almost ordinary encounters, to unravel everything you once held certain. And for me, those moments came in the form of 5 unexpected visits that slowly and painfully changed the way I saw love, loyalty, and even myself. I had been married to Ion for nearly 8 years, and in those years we had built what I believed was a strong, respectful, and peaceful relationship, the kind that didn't rely on grand gestures but thrived on small acts of care, quiet understanding, and mutual respect. We were not perfect, but we were steady, and I always thought that steadiness was enough to carry us through anything life placed in our path. The first visit came on an ordinary afternoon when the sun was soft and the house was wrapped in a calm silence, and I remember feeling a strange hesitation when I opened the door to find a woman standing there with a polite smile and uncertain eyes. She introduced herself as Sanaa, saying she had come to return a book that Ion had lent her, and though her words were simple, there was something in her tone that lingered longer than it should have, something that made my heart pause for just a moment before I brushed it aside, convincing myself that I was reading too much into a harmless interaction, because trust means giving your partner the benefit of the doubt, doesn't it? I invited her in, offered her tea, and watched as she glanced around our home with a familiarity that felt out of place. But again, I silenced my thoughts, reminding myself that suspicion is often born from fear, not truth. The second visit happened just a week later, this time in the evening when Ion was still at work, and Sanaa returned, saying she needed help with something related to a project they were apparently working on together. I remember the way she spoke his name so naturally, so comfortably, as if it had found a permanent place in her daily life, and though she was respectful and kind, there was an ease in her presence that unsettled me in ways I could not explain, yet I smiled, listened, and helped where I could, because I believed in being gracious and because I did not want to become the kind of person who lets doubt poison their heart without reason. But that night, as I sat beside Ion at dinner, I found myself studying his face more closely, searching for something I couldn't quite define, and when he casually mentioned Sanaa as a colleague, I nodded as if everything made perfect sense, even though a quiet unease had already begun to settle deep within me. The third visit was the one that truly began to shake my sense of peace, not because of anything dramatic, but because of what it revealed in silence rather than words. Sanaa arrived unexpectedly again, this time with a small homemade dish, saying she had made too much and thought we might like some, and while her gesture was thoughtful, it carried a weight that felt too personal, too intimate for someone who was simply a colleague. And as we sat together, I noticed the way she spoke about Ion, not with impropriety, but with a familiarity that suggested shared moments, private conversations, and emotional closeness that went beyond professional boundaries. And for the first time, I felt something shift inside me, a quiet realization that love is not only tested by actions, but also by the invisible lines that should never be crossed. And I began to wonder if those lines had already been blurred without me even noticing. The fourth visit did not come to our home but found me instead, unexpectedly, when I ran into Sanaa at a small cafe near the market, and she greeted me warmly, inviting me to sit with her, and though part of me wanted to walk away, I stayed, because I felt that avoiding the situation would only deepen my confusion, and during that conversation, something within me finally opened my eyes to a truth I had been trying so hard not to see. She spoke of Ion's kindness, his understanding nature, the way he listened to her problems and supported her during difficult times, and while none of it was inappropriate on the surface, it was the depth of her emotional reliance on him that struck me the hardest, because those were the things that once defined our relationship, the things that made me feel secure and valued. And as I listened, I realized that emotional distance does not always happen suddenly. Sometimes it slips away quietly, shared in pieces with someone else until there is not enough left where it belongs. The fifth and final visit was the most difficult, not because of what Sanaa said or did, but because of what I finally understood about myself and my marriage. She came one last time, this time to apologize, though she never explicitly admitted to any wrongdoing, and her words were careful, respectful, and filled with a kind of guilt that did not need explanation. And in that moment, I saw her not as someone who had taken something from me, but as someone who had also become lost in a situation that should have been guided by clearer boundaries and stronger decisions. And as she left, I realized that the true pain did not come from her presence, but from the space that had quietly formed between me and Ayan, a space that neither of us had acknowledged until it had grown too wide to ignore. That night, I sat with Ayan and spoke with a calmness that surprised even me, not with anger or accusations, but with honesty and vulnerability, because I had come to understand that true strength in a relationship is not in avoiding difficult conversations, but in facing them with courage and respect. And as we talked, he admitted that while nothing physical had ever happened, he had allowed an emotional connection to grow in a way that was unfair to our marriage, not out of intention to hurt me, but out of carelessness and a failure to recognize the importance of boundaries. And hearing those words was both painful and clarifying, because it showed me that infidelity is not always defined by actions alone. Sometimes it lives in the quiet exchange of emotional intimacy that rightfully belongs within a committed relationship. The days that followed were not easy, filled with reflection, difficult choices, and a deep examination of what love truly means. But through it all, I learned that forgiveness is not about ignoring pain or pretending that everything is fine. It is about acknowledging the hurt, understanding its roots, and deciding whether the foundation of the relationship is strong enough to rebuild upon. And in our case, it was not a simple decision, but one that required patience, effort, and a renewed commitment from both of us to restore the trust that had been quietly broken. What those 5 unexpected visits taught me was not just about infidelity, but about the importance of emotional awareness, communication, and the responsibility we carry in protecting the relationships we value. Because love is not just about being present physically, it is about being mindful of where we invest our emotional energy, about respecting the invisible boundaries that safeguard trust, and about choosing, every day, to honor the commitment we have made to one another, even in the face of life's challenges and distractions. In the end, I did not walk away from my marriage, nor did I pretend that nothing had happened. Instead, I chose to stay and rebuild, not because it was the easier path, but because I believed that what we had was worth fighting for, and because Ayan showed through his actions that he was willing to learn, to change, and to protect what we shared with a deeper understanding than before. And while the memory of those visits still lingers, it no longer brings the same pain, but serves as a reminder of how easily even the strongest relationships can be tested when we lose sight of what truly matters. The emotional weight of those 5 visits did not disappear overnight, but over time, it transformed into something meaningful, something that strengthened my understanding of love and resilience. And if there is one message I would leave for anyone listening to this story, it is this: never underestimate the power of small choices and quiet moments, because they shape the direction of our relationships in ways we often do not realize until it is too late. And always remember that true love is not just about how we feel, but about how we act, how we respect boundaries, and how we protect the trust that has been placed in our hands.